Friday afternoon in Jerusalem. The sky went dark for 3 hours. Then Jesus said, "It is finished." But the Greek word tetelestai meant more than that. It was like a paid-in-full receipt. Jesus was announcing that the debt for humanity was fully paid. After that, the crowd dispersed. The disciples hid. And a question hung over Jerusalem. What happens to the body? Joseph of Arimathea, a member of the Sanhedrin, walked to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. This took courage. Associating with a crucified criminal could ruin a man socially and politically. Joseph had his own tomb, a new tomb, and never used before. The Greek word for it is kainos, pristine, untouched, set apart. For hundreds of years, Isaiah had written that the Messiah would be assigned a grave with the wicked, yet with the rich in his death. On that Friday, Jesus was crucified between criminals and placed in a wealthy man's private tomb. The prophecy was fulfilled. The unused tomb wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, honorable, and prophetic. Jewish purity law treated contact with the dead as the highest form of uncleanness. A tomb that had held bodies was considered defiled. Jesus, holy and without blemish, had to be placed in a tomb that was untouched. The unused tomb followed the same pattern as his virgin birth. Untouched, set apart, prepared by God. The tomb also protected the evidence. It was one chamber, one body, one stone, unsealed and guarded by Roman soldiers. When the women arrived, there was no confusion about what had been placed inside. One body entered, none remained. The tomb was in a garden. In the Bible, the first garden, Eden, was where death entered the world. Now, in this second garden, death is being reversed. Mary Magdalene first mistook the risen Jesus for the gardener, but he was standing in the place of restoration. Saturday passed in silence. Everyone thought the story was over. But in the sealed tomb, in the new chamber that had never held death, something was happening. On the third day, Jesus rose. The tomb had held what it was never meant to contain, and it released what death could not hold. One question has echoed from that empty tomb for 20 centuries. If the debt was paid in full and resurrection is real, what does this new, unused tomb mean for everyone today? Ho lithos apokakalitai. The stone has been rolled away. That's the exact Greek phrase Mark uses. Apokakalitai, perfect passive tense, meaning it was rolled away before the women arrived, the action already complete, the result already standing when human eyes first saw it. Not in progress, done, and nobody saw it happen. The most significant event in human history occurred in complete silence, in the pre-dawn darkness, witnessed by no one. Which is exactly the kind of thing you'd expect from a God who carved the universe before anyone existed to watch. We left off with a question echoing across 20 centuries from an empty kainos tomb. Now let's answer it. Yom Rishon, the first day of the week. Before sunrise, a small group of women move through Jerusalem's streets toward the garden. They carry aromata, spices and fragrant oils, smyrna, aloes, the burial preparations that Friday's desperate timeline had left unfinished. They are not walking quickly. Grief does something to your pace. It makes every step feel like a negotiation between moving forward and the part of you that knows moving forward means arriving somewhere you are not ready to be. And one of them asks a question that is so human, so completely ordinary, that it almost stops you cold in the middle of the most extraordinary morning in history. Tis apokolysei heminton lithon. Who will roll the stone away for us? Not prophecy, not theology,
Who will roll the stone
not
away for
the soldiers or the Roman seal, just the stone. A golel, a massive disc of limestone likely weighing between 1 and 2 tons, settled into its carved channel. They were women. They couldn't move it. They needed help. And when they arrived, the stone was already gone, already moved, already aside. Before they got there, before the question was even formally asked out loud, the obstacle had been dealt with. I want you to hold that image, because it speaks beyond the immediate narrative. The thing you are walking toward with grief in your hands and an impossible obstacle turning over in your mind. Sometimes you arrive to find it already moved, not because you were strong enough, not because you organized the right help, but because something happened in the darkness while you were still on the road that you haven't heard about yet. Mary Magdalene reached the tomb first. She saw the stone displaced, and she ran. Not toward the tomb, but away from it, back to find Peter and John. Her immediate conclusion was not anastasis, resurrection. Her conclusion was theft. Heranton kurion ektu nemeu. They have taken the Lord out of the tomb. Peter and John sprinted toward the garden. John, identified in his own gospel as Ho Allos Mathetes, the other disciple, outran Peter, arrived first, and stopped. He looked in, saw the burial cloths, but waited. Peter, being Peter, went straight inside. And then John entered. And the text says something precise and important. He eidon kai episteoson. He saw and believed. The Greek is deliberate, not heard, not was told. He saw. Something in the visual arrangement of what was inside that tomb communicated directly to his understanding before he could construct a theological argument for it. What did he see? The orthonia, the linen burial wrappings, lying there, still shaped, still spiced, as if the body had passed through them rather than been unwrapped from them. And the sudarion, the face cloth, folded separately, set apart, placed with intention. Here is where the ancient detail matters. In 1st century Jewish culture, when a master finished a meal, he would leave his napkin crumpled, a signal to the servants that he was done. They could clear the table. But if the master folded his napkin neatly and set it aside, it meant one thing: I am coming back. The folded sudarion was not a minor housekeeping detail, it was a message. Peter and John left. They returned to where the others were hiding. But Mary stayed. She stood outside the tomb, weeping. And in her grief, she did something that seems almost irrational. She bent down and looked inside again, as if another look would change the answer, as if love could somehow negotiate with an empty chamber. And this time there were 2 angeloi, figures, seated where the body had been. One at the kephel, the head, one at the pos, the feet. The same positions the cherubim occupied on either end of the kaporet, the mercy seat of the Aaron Habrit, the Ark of the Covenant. 2 guardian figures flanking the place where the most sacred presence had rested. The tomb, for a moment, looked like the Holy of Holies. They asked her why she was weeping. She gave her answer.
Woman, why
And
are you
then
weeping?
she turned. Someone was standing behind her. She didn't recognize him. Through the blur of tears, in the soft chaos of early morning light, she assumed he was Ho-Kepuros, the gardener. She asked him the same question she
Sir,
had been asking everyone.
Do you know where
Do
they
you
took
know
him?
Where they took him. One word ended the confusion. Maria, her name in Aramaic. The specific form Jesus had always used for her, not the Greek Maria, Mariam. the intimate form, the way you say someone's name when you know them completely.
Mary,
and something in the sound of it, the
do not cling
particular
to
way
me,
that voice shaped
for I have
those
not yet
three
ascended to the
syllables.
Father.
She knew, before logic, before theology, before she could construct a single rational argument. Rabboni, teacher, master, the Aramaic form more intimate than the standard rabbi. Mary of Magdala, Miriam her Magdalite, had come to the garden to complete a burial. She left the garden as the first martyr's witness of the resurrection, the first human being in history to see the risen Christ and know it. Not Peter, not John, not one of the Shnem Asar, the 12. A woman who had been delivered from darkness, who had stood at the cross when the strong men ran, who came back before sunrise with spices and nowhere else to go. She was first because she stayed. Now let's cross the city, because while Mary was running to tell the disciples, something else was unfolding near the praetorium. The custodia, the Roman guard unit, had fled. These were not phylaks, ordinary watchmen. These were trained Roman soldiers, men who understood with absolute clarity what lepotentaxin, abandoning their post, meant under Roman military law. Desertion was a capital offence. A soldier who slept on guard duty could be executed.
Yes, sir. I am ready.
The fear of Roman discipline was not theoretical for these men, it was institutional, bone deep, and they ran anyway. Whatever they experienced at that tomb in the pre-dawn hours was more terrifying than the wrath of Rome. The text records that they asaisthesan, they shook, they trembled, they became like dead men themselves. They went directly to the archieres, the chief priests, not to Pilate, to the men who had arranged the guard in the first place.
The enemy is
And
upon
what
us.
followed was an emergency council meeting, followed by a significant payment of arguria, silver, the same word used for the payment to Judas. And here is the official counter-narrative they produced.
Take the northern path.
Say that the disciples came by night and stole the body while you slept. The theological weight of that story's failure is enormous, because it is, structurally, logically, self-defeating. Goudain, sleeping guards cannot identify who moved a stone. You cannot testify about events you were unconscious during. Roman law understood this. Greek rhetoric understood this. The Mishnah understood this. A witness who was asleep is not a witness. Furthermore, physically, moving a golel stone weighing up to 2 tons, unwrapping Smyrna-soaked burial cloths from a decomposing body, carrying that body out, all of this in complete silence, past trained military sentries. The logistics alone are implausible. But here is the detail that closes the argument entirely. The chief priests never went to the tomb to verify the body was still there. They never produced remains. No bones, no linen, no physical evidence of any kind. In a city where everyone knew where this tomb was, where it had been sealed and guarded with official Roman authority. Not one person in any surviving document, Roman or Jewish or otherwise, ever produced a body. The empty tomb was never disputed, only explained. And the best explanation the most motivated, most resourced, most educated opponents of the resurrection could manufacture required their witnesses to be simultaneously asleep and observant. Over the following 40 days, the risen Jesus appeared repeatedly, not in visions, not in dreams, in physical, verifiable encounters. To Mary in the garden, to 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus, 7 miles from Jerusalem, who walked with him for hours and didn't recognize him until he broke bread. To 10 disciples in a locked room. Then again to 11 when Thomas was present. Thomas,
brothers, do not
Toma,
doubt the signs you
which
have
in
seen.
Aramaic means
Blessed are
twin,
those who have not
had made
seen
his
yet
skepticism explicit. Ean me ido ou me pisteuso. Unless I see, I will absolutely not believe. He wanted to touch the typonton helon, the marks of the nails. He wanted to insert his hand into the pleuron, the side wound. Jesus appeared and invited him. Fer ton dactylon so hode. Bring your finger here. See my hands. Ghosts don't have wounds you can touch. Hallucinations don't leave physical marks across multiple independent witnesses. And critically, if 500 people simultaneously experienced a hallucination, that would itself be the greatest miracle in history, requiring more faith to believe than the resurrection. But notice something about those wounds. Jesus was raised in a soma pneumaticon, a spiritual body, as Paul describes it in 1 Corinthians 15. Glorified, transformed, no longer subject to death. And yet, the wounds remained, not as injuries, not as damage, as permanent marks. The resurrection does not erase what was suffered. It transfigures it. The stigmata of the cross became, in the resurrection body, not evidence of defeat, but the permanent testimony of victory. He carried the marks of what he passed through into the other side. Paul, writing to the Corinthians, reaches for an image from the world of agriculture to explain what the resurrection means beyond the immediate event. Speratai en phthora, egairatai en aphthasia. It is sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption. A seed goes into the ground and dies. What emerges is not the seed. It is something continuous with the seed, genetically, essentially the same, but transformed into a form the seed never had. The death was real, the burial was real, and the resurrection was real, but different, elevated, kainos. That word again. He knew, unused, set apart. Jesus, Paul says, is the aparche, the firstfruits. In the Hebrew agricultural calendar, Bikurim, the feast of firstfruits, was the day the first sheaf of the harvest was presented to God, the day after the Sabbath following Passover. It was a guarantee. The first fruits was not the whole harvest, it was the promise of the harvest. The resurrection of Jesus was not an isolated one-time anomaly of history. It was Bikurim, the first sheaf, the guarantee of what is coming for everyone who belongs to Him. The kainos tomb held for 3 days the first fruits of a new creation, and what walked out of it on Yom Rishon was the down payment on every promise ever made to every person who has ever faced death, wondering whether the grave was the end. From tetelestai on the cross to kainos in the tomb. From Isaiah's 700-year-old prophecy to the folded saudarion. From the tumah of defiled burial chambers to the tahara of a space that had never witnessed corruption. From the self-defeating logic of sleeping Roman witnesses to the physical wounds Thomas touched. Every detail holds, every thread connects, every apparent weakness in the story, when examined in its original linguistic and cultural context, turns out to be load-bearing architecture. But here is where ancient history becomes present reality. The same kainos logic that governed Jesus' burial governs your story. The Hebrew concept of chadash, newness, renewal, runs like a current through the entire biblical narrative. Hine anochi ose chadasha. Behold, I am doing a new thing, Isaiah writes in chapter 43. Not a repaired thing, not a restored thing. A chadash thing, a kainos thing. The sealed spaces in your life, the situations that look permanently closed, The grief that has grown so familiar you've stopped expecting it to lift. The dreams, buried so long you've forgotten where you put them. The God who moved a 2-ton stone before sunrise, before anyone asked, before anyone arrived to watch. That God is not consulting your circumstances before deciding what is possible. The golel was already rolled away. The sudarian was already folded. The garden was already full of morning light. Solomon's Beit HaMikdash, the temple, cost $590 billion, took 7 years, and required 183,000 workers. When the Aron Habrit was placed in the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of Holies, the Shekinah descended. The glory was so thick the priests could not stand, and that temple was ash within 4 centuries, because stone and cedar and gold were never the permanent dwelling. They were the shadow, the tupos, the type, the anticipatory image of something that was coming. The permanent dwelling arrived in a kainos tomb, briefly, for 3 days. And then it left, not defeated, not escaped, not removed by human hands, but risen. Anastasis, a standing up again. A declaration that the Shekinah, the presence of God, would no longer dwell in a building that could be burned. It would dwell in the indestructible. The most important empty space in the world is not Solomon's ruined temple. It is not the Kodesh HaKodashim that stood empty after the Aron was lost. It is a kainos rock chamber in a garden outside Jerusalem, where the burial cloths lie folded, where the stone was already moved before anyone arrived to ask for help, and where a gardener called a grieving woman by her name in the early morning light. Miriam. He knew her name. He called it specifically, in the intimate Aramaic form, because he knows names. He knows yours. And the question that empty tomb has been asking for 2,000 years, through every generation, every language, every civilization that has risen and fallen since that Sunday morning, is the same question it asks you today. Pistue tuto. Do you believe this? Not as theology, not as history, as a living answer to a living person who walked out of a sealed tomb before sunrise and has been calling people by name ever since. The tomb is kainos, empty, new, unused again. What begins in you because of it is entirely up to how you answer that question.